If you've watched my channel, you probably know I am a huge defender of the Mike Fritz theory. You know, the theory that Michael Afton is Fritz Smith from FNaF 2. It's a theory that practically everyone believes. I've made 2 videos going over this theory and why I believe it, one of which took me months to make. However, I don't believe it anymore. That's right, Mike Fritz's biggest defender is no longer defending it. You might be wondering, what made you stop believing this theory? And well, I admit it might be nothing, but I'm pretty certain it probably is something. Recently, I was looking through the survival logbook. While I was looking through the book, I noticed something. As we all know, Foxy acts as the security guard in this book, almost definitely representing Mike, but we'll talk about that later. But I noticed something else. He isn't the only security guard. There are 2 more. Bonnie and Freddy are also shown to be security guards. This, to me, seems to imply that there are 3 security guards that we play as in the games. Why? Well, here's what we have to remember. The logbook is basically an add-on for FFPS, made to confirm who the 6th grade student is, lore keeper ending. As we know, FFPS was made to clear things up, and I see no reason why this wouldn't carry over to the logbook as well. For example, this book clears up if Mike is the Foxy bro or the bite victim by having Mike be represented by Foxy and having the bite victim talk throughout. It also clears up that Mike is the one we play as in FNaF 4. I think the logbook was basically supposed to clear up things FFPS couldn't, or at the very least it does have lore relevant details in it. And because of that, I think having 3 security guards was an intentional detail requested by Scott. I think the 3rd one is Fritz, since the logbook already has Foxy, who is Mike, as the FNaF 3 guard, so the FNaF 3 guard is already represented. And let me explain why we know Foxy definitely represents Mike and not Phone Guy, who is named Ralph if you didn't know, as revealed in the week before. Foxy representing Ralph is a kind of a popular idea. I mean, Foxy being Mike is definitely more popular, but I still see Ralph every once in a while. The evidence for Ralph is that in FNaF 2, Ralph says Foxy is his favorite, which is reinforced in the week before. Also, some of the quotes on the night pages are similar to stuff Phone Guy would say. You know, what are you still doing here? Whatever else he says, I forgot. And Ralph being in the FNaF 3 office kinda makes sense because his tapes were played in FNaF 3. Just ignore that he wasn't a night guard when those tapes were recorded. However, I think it's more likely Foxy is supposed to be Mike, and here's why. Foxy acts as the protagonist of the book, which Mike is. You know, he's the one who writes it and everything. The best evidence for Foxy being Mike is that on the first night page, Foxy is seen reading a magazine in a chair, which is obviously not an office chair, implying this is at Foxy's home and is applying for the job. The magazine is also a sister location reference. It's a Screw, Bolts, and Hairpins magazine, which was a magazine mentioned in sister location as one of the possible reasons Mike took the job. I guess this is showing how Mike got the job at Freddy's, you know, via this magazine. Which Freddy's? Take your pick. Also, something else to call out is that on the cover, there are 2 Freddys. Could this be another Jeremy and Fritz reference? You know, they were the night guards before Mike, and it's like where you got the night shift, I don't know. They do wear Freddy masks in FNaF 2. Like I said, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty likely Foxy is Mike and not Ralph. And again, this makes sense since Scott would want to clarify, you know, Mike is the Foxy bro, not the bite victim. And especially when you remember that this book also confirms Mike is the FNaF 4 player. So it's definitely possible Scott considered people would be confused and think Mike is the bite victim, which did end up happening. So clearly, you know, whatever he wanted to do didn't actually work. The reason I think Freddy and Bonnie are supposed to be Jeremy and Fritz is simply because they're the other 2 security guards in the series that we play as, at least. And also, they're in a pair, and Jeremy and Fritz are like a pair, right? They're the 2 security guards that play as in FNaF 2. There's never been another game where we have 2 protagonists, unless you want to count the minigame. But yeah, Jeremy and Fritz are basically a pair. Bonnie and Freddy are a pair, and they're both security guards. I think there's a connection. There might even be a deeper connection. As we know, the missing kid named Jeremy possesses Bonnie. Now, the missing kid Fritz doesn't possess Freddy, he possesses Foxy. But obviously, Foxy can't be used to represent Fritz, since Foxy is already used for Mike. Freddy is the next best option since Fritz wears a Freddy mask in FNaF 2. Also, fun fact, Fritz is actually short for Frederick, and Freddy is also a nickname for Frederick. Although, I'm gonna be real, Scott did not consider this. If he did, why wouldn't Fritz MCI be Freddy? I'm pretty sure Fritz Smith is Freddy because, you know, Freddy's the next best option to represent him after Foxy. Bonnie and Freddy are also the other 2 male animatronics in the band. So, unfortunately, Fritz Smith being a girl is debunked, so fuck you, Scott Cawthon. So yeah, Fritz Smith is not Michael Afton, but it seems like Mike is the FNaF 3 guard, since, you know, Foxy's in the FNaF 3 office. If you believe the theory that Fritz Smith is the phone dude, you could use this part of the logbook where Freddy is talking to Foxy in the FNaF 3 office as evidence for it, I guess. Because, you know, that's what phone dude would do, basically, like, talk to Mike on the phone. Obviously, Freddy's not on the phone, but, you know, kind of connection, I guess. But I'm always going to be a hardcore Cassie's dad phone dude truther. There's just one thing that makes me doubt Mike being the guard in 3, and that is Hudson Foster's existence. In case you don't know who this is, Hudson is the main protagonist of the Fazbear's Fright story, What We Found. He is a security guard for Fazbear's Fright. Killed his abusive stepdad and his mom in a house fire when he was younger. During his night shift, he goes up against Springtrap while facing hallucinations caused by him. In the end, Hudson burns alive in an oven. Go watch my FNaF 3 guard breakdown video. I explain What We Found a lot better than that. This is just a quick rundown. So you might be wondering, what about this makes you doubt Mike being the guard? Remember, Fazbear's Frights was made to fill in blanks from the past. Scott said this, and he even said it will go against things the community likes. Andrew's the one you shot killed. And then we have a whole story about a night guard at a horror attraction, Fazbear's Fright, who encounters Springtrap, and the book even gives Hudson fire-related trauma, which could explain why the phantoms are burnt in FNAF 3. Why would this be written if it wasn't trying to say this guy Hudson was the guard? And even if it's in a new continuity, it's not uncommon for characters to carry over from the book to the games, you know, like Henry or Charlie. Or in the movie, Mike is still Mike. He's still the FNAF 1 guard, Mike. Even though the movie has completely different events to the game, that is still the same character, Mike Schmidt from FNAF 1. So it is possible that Hudson Foster is still Hudson Foster from FNAF 3, even with what we found numerous differences between it and FNAF 3. You know, for instance, the building doesn't burn down, Hudson dies on his first night against Springtrap, and a lot more stuff too. So why does the story exist, if not to show Hudson as the guard? Well, I'm not sure, but I have a couple ideas. You guys might not know this, but FNAF 3 is one of Scott's favorite games, so it's possible he just want to write a story based off of it. It could have also been made to explain the Phantoms, but with a different protagonist than the one in the game. I mean, the Phantoms Hudson's experiences are different. They're not burnt, and he hears his abusive stepfather's voice along with other voices, compared to FNAF 3 where that doesn't happen. Then we come to Hudson himself. Why would he exist if he isn't the guard? What stopped Scott from just writing the book about Mike? Some people say it might have been too complicated to make the story about Mike, which is true, but still, you know, Scott definitely could have done it. So why would Hudson exist if he's not the guard? And honestly, I'm not sure. But it's not the first time a new character has taken over the role of another in a different continuity. For example, Michael Brooks is Golden Freddy in the novels, while he isn't in the games. There's also Abby. She takes the role of Mike's younger sister in the movies, which Elizabeth is in the games, but Abby's probably not Elizabeth. These characters replace characters from the game's continuity because they fit the story Scott wanted to tell better. Could this apply to Hudson? Maybe, but at the same time, there's a possibility that both FNAF 3 and What We Found are canon. What do I mean? You guys know how both the Into the Pit short story and Into the Game are canon, but the game is probably the actual events. The same may be true with What We Found. And while the Into the Pit story and game have some massive differences, changing the protagonist seems a bit much. But then again, what I just said, we don't even know if that's true, it's just an idea. You know, the difference is Into the Pit is a game based off a book, What We Found is a book based off of a game. So, you know, it is kind of a different situation. All of this points towards Hudson, but then the logbook literally has Mike in the FNAF 3 office. And I've yet to hear a good defense for this besides, it's just a mistake, but I doubt that. The office shows up multiple times, even in non-night related sections. I'm sure Scott would have noticed that at some point, and, you know, he could have said like, oh no, wrong office. I think you guys seriously underestimate how much Scott does actually check this stuff. Like, he would notice eventually that Mike was in the FNAF 3 office. He would have to check over his own book. And this book already confirms a lot of stuff. Mike Schmidt being Michael Afton, Michael being the FNAF 4 protagonist, Golden Freddy's name, and that's just off the top of my head. And if we can use the drawing of the puppet giving a little girl cake on the page that mentions Happiest Day as evidence that the Golden Freddy kid in Happiest Day is Cassidy, and that Cassidy's a girl in the games, it's only fair that Foxy being in the FNAF 3 office is evidence that Mike is the FNAF 3 guard. And that goes vice versa, by the way. I've also seen some people say that logbook being meta means this is irrelevant, but I don't really see how. If anything, it even makes more sense. It's since the logbook is a meta book meant to confirm lore, then Mike being the FNAF 3 office should basically be confirmation. But then again, Hudson's mere existence puts a hole in this theory. And then I seem like a hypocrite because I believe Andrew is the one you should not have killed in the games, right? But some people say, oh, you know, it's just like a stand-in for Cassidy. I guess there is a difference between Andrew and Hudson, though. There was actual stuff in UCN to imply there was this new seventh spirit. And also, Andrew's story is clearly after UCN, while Hudson's story is like an alternate continuity type of thing, you know? Although there is the possibility that What Found is canon and that it's like a prequel to FNAF 3, which I would just love to be the case. I really think that'd be some great world building, but, you know, I do think it's unlikely. But I have seen some ideas that maybe it's a sequel and like Eleanor or Springtrap, which I actually like too. But, you know, I doubt either of those, unfortunately. So yeah, I guess it is a little bit different, but still. And, you know, there are other problems with Mike being in FNAF 3. In FFPS, William says this:
You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, it's still me.
Some people use this line to say Mike couldn't be in FNAF 3 because why wouldn't he recognize Afton? But here's the thing we have to remember. This is Afton's line, not Mike. Afton looks different than he did in FFPS, so he is considering that maybe Mike won't recognize him. We don't know if Mike does or not. Although we definitely should, because, you know, he's the main character of this game. He doesn't like do anything. I don't know why Scott chose to have the main character not really like do anything, or like we don't learn his thoughts about what's happening in the game where he dies. But that's a video for a whole nother day. Oh, so we can pretty confidently say Afton does look different in universe. Nako said that Scraptrap's redesign is classified as a lore question by Scott, which most likely means there's a lore reason for it. And everyone else in this game has a canon explanation for their redesign, so why wouldn't William? So yeah, Mike may not recognize William, but it's still Springtrap. I just feel like this line is probably talking talking to the player, basically saying that even though Springtrap looks different, it's still Springtrap. This especially makes sense when we remember that Mike Trap was a big debate at the time of this game's development, so this line would basically serve to debunk that theory. Some people also take issue with Michael's speech and sister location, saying that setting up William and Michael's meeting in FPS, not showing the outcome of their meeting for FNaF 3, which is the most common interpretation of this cutscene. Now, I do agree this is setting up FFPS, but could it not be serving a double purpose? Showing the outcome of Michael finding his father while also showing that they're going to meet again in FFPS? Maybe that's why, and this is a stretch, Mike says, I'm going to come find you twice, because he's going to find Afton twice. But yeah, like I said, that's a stretch. He probably just said, I'm going to come find you twice, because just saying it once sounds kind of unnatural. So, you know, this is like where I was whenever I made that Fright Guard video. I'm still, you know, pretty in between. I'm confident Mike is the guard, and I guess Hudson could be his own independent character in his own continuity. He just isn't Mike because Scott didn't want to wrap up Mike for some reason. But, you know, at the same time, Scott did say Frights was made to clear up things from the past, fill in the blanks, and then you have the story about the guard. I don't know. You know, the real thing is, the Mike and Hudson debate both come down to books, so whichever one you think is better evidence, I guess you can take it. I take the logbook is probably better because, you know, that is clearing up stuff from the games already, and I feel like, but still is Frights, so, you know, I don't know, I just feel like it was intentional to have Mike in the FNaF 3 office. So, yeah, do you remember when this video was about why Mike isn't Fritz Smith? So yeah, I do believe the logbook is showing Mike isn't Fritz, but who is Fritz Smith? Well, you have to wait until my video about who Jeremy and Fritz are comes out to learn about that. And with that, we come to the end of this video. Sorry for the Mike being the FNaF 3 guard rant, not really sure why I did that, but I wrote like 4 pages of it, and I do not want all that work to go to waste. Let me know in the comments, who do you think Fritz Smith is? Mike or someone else? I have my ideas that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And while you're down there, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.